Alright, Johnny the Savage here, coming back with part 2 of America's Assignment with Destiny. 3 great culture heroes were associated with the origin of the Mayan civilization. Votan, who founded the Votanic Empire, Sidrat Plakank, Zamna, the Yucatan hero, and Kolkin, whose worship extended through the Central American area. All 3 came from a remote region lying eastward, introduced arts and sciences, and founded religious cults or mysteries. From the legendary histories of these persons, they should be included as adepts or initiates of ancient secret schools, possibly Atlantean. In a book written in the Quechuan language and attributed to Votan, the Great One declared himself a snake, a descendant of Imos of the line of Chan. He came to America by the command of God from a distant place. He ultimately founded Palenque and built a temple with many subterranean chambers, which was called the House of Darkness. Here he deposited the records of his nation in the keeping of certain aged men called guardians. There is a legend, folks, that this Votan was the grandson of Noah. The original book containing this report was in the possession of Nunix de la Vega, Bishop of Chiapas, but he destroyed it with the other native manuscripts which he was able to accumulate. Fortunately, however, it had been copied by Aguilar. Itzamna, according to God, that's a fucking shitty name, Cogolado, was a priest who came with the migration from the east. He was the son of the supreme deity Hanab Ku, or the Holy One. Itzamna is pictured as an ancient man with a very prominent and strangely shaped nose, either toothless or with one crooked fang. Likenesses of him have been found indicating his birth from a plant growing from the earth. He is also shown rising from the mouth of a serpent or a turtle to symbolize that he came from the sea. He healed the sick and restored the dead to life. He lived, according to the records, to a great age and was said to have been buried at Izamal, or Itzamal, where his tombs became places of pilgrimages. Itzamna was sometimes called the Skillful Hand, and after his death, his body was divided. His skillful hand was placed in one temple, his heart in another, and the rest of his remains in a third. One of the best known of his emblems was a Tau or T-cross. It is now generally admitted that the Quetzalcoatl of the Nahotzilan people, the Gukumats or the Quiches, and the Kulkulkans of the more southern Mayas were one person. In each language, the word signifies feathered, plumed, or winged serpent. This title may have resulted from Quetzalcoatl casting his lot among, or gathering his first followers from, the descendants of Votan. This tribal group had the serpent as its heraldic device, just like the Egyptians. At a remote time, the semi-mystical, semi-divine priest initiate Quetzalcoatl came from the fabled land of the 7 colors, Atlantis, and established his right as Tula in Cholula. Quetzalcoatl was the initiate philosopher and teacher of the Nahuatl tribes of central Mexico. Among the appellations of this priest, prophet, king, are he who was born of the Virgin, Lord of the Winds, and the divine incarnation. Quetzalcoatl was the son of the universal creator god and the Virgin Xochitl. Fuck. And his conception was made known by an ambassador from the god of the Milky Way. Torquemada and his Indian monarchies described a band of people who came from the north, dressed in long, black robes, arriving at Tula. These strangers were well received, but finding the region already thickly populated, they continued to Cholula. These wanderers were great artists and skilled in working metals. Quetzalcoatl was their leader. Mendieta, in his ecclesiastical history, described Quetzalcoatl as a white man with a strong formation of body, broad forehead, large eyes, and a flowing beard. He wore a mitre on his head and was dressed in a long white robe reaching to his feet and covered with a design of red crosses. In his hand he held a sickle. His habits were ascetic. He never married and was most chaste and pure in his life, and is said to have endured penance in a neighboring mountain, not for its effect upon himself, mind you, but as an example to others. He condemned sacrifices except of fruit or flowers, and was known as the god of peace, for when he addressed on the subject of war, he is reported to have stopped his ears with his fingers. Fray Bernardino de Sahagan described Quetzalcoatl as very homely, with a long head and a very long beard. There was a recumbent statue of him in this temple at Tula, which was always covered with blankets. His vassals, writes the good Fray, were all workmen in the mechanic arts and skillful in cutting the green stones called chaclavites. Also in the art of smelting silver and making other objects. Alchemy! All these arts had their origin and commencement with Quetzalcoatl, who had houses made with these precious green stones called chalcavites, and others made of silver, still others made of red and white shells, others all made of boards, and again others of turquoise, and some made of rich plumes. Quetzalcoatl also owned all the wealth of the world in gold, silver, and the green stones called chalcavites, and other precious things, and had a great abundance of cocoa trees of different colors, which are called, I don't even want to try, Xochicaltao. I hate you so much, Quetzalcoatl. The said vassals of Quetzalcoatl were also very wealthy, and did not lack anything at all. They never suffered famine or lack of corn. In fact, they never even ate the small ears of corn, but rather heated their baths with them, using them instead of firewood. They also say that Quetzalcoatl did penance by pricking his limbs and drawing blood, with which he stained the magui points that he bathed at midnight in a spring called Zicapaya. The interpreter of Codex Tellerino Reminis said that Quetzalcoatl was created by the breath of Tonacatcotli. Quetzalcoatl was born on the day of 7 Cains and disappeared or died on the day of 1 Cain. He was identified with the planet Venus. The Codex Vaticus A says that the hero founded 4 temples. The first for the princes, the second for the people, the third the house of fear or serpents, and the fourth the temple of shame. The Codex Chincala says that Quetzalcoatl was born as a 9-year-old child. When he resolved to leave Mexico, he reached the seashore and, removing his clothing and his snake mask of turquoise, destroyed himself by fire. His ashes changed into birds, and his heart became the morning star, Lucifer. He remained 4 days in the underworld and 4 days as a corpse. After that, he ascended to heaven as a god. It is specifically mentioned by Sahagan that Quetzalcoatl created and built houses under the earth. Now, traces of subterranean grottos and rooms have been discovered in the vicinity of most of the architectural monuments of the Nahuas. There is a vast complex of such apartments near the Pyramid of the Sun at San Juan Tlalactalan. The Amerindians believed the serpent to be an earth dweller, and it is quite possible that the accounts implied these subterranean and secret places to be chambers of initiation into the mysteries of the cult. According to De Bourbourg, the Mexican demigod Wotan made a journey through a subterranean passage, which, running underground, terminated at the root of heaven. This passage was a snake's hole, and Wotan was admitted because he himself was a son of the snake. Quetzalcoatl appeared as the great sorcerer, magician, or necromancer. He performed miracles, and upon his departure, his secrets were entrusted to an order of priests governed by a hierophant or master. This priesthood practiced the arts of science, treated the sick, administered sacraments, and were diviners and prophets. Landa gives some consideration to the activities of these religious orders. Lucian Bayart summarizes the available data thusly. The more contradictory ideas have been current in regard to this divinity, who, now considered of celestial origin, and now regarded as a man who had a coup, he certainly belonged to a race other than the one he civilized. Of that, there can be no doubt. But what was his country? He died, announcing that he would return at the head of the white-faced men. And we have seen that the Indians believed his prophecy, fulfilled when the Spaniards landed on their shores. And of course, we have seen the consequences of that action. According to Sahagan, the most usual ornaments of the images of Quetzalcoatl were a mitre spotted like the skin of a tiger, a short embroidered tunic, turquoise earrings, and a golden collar supporting fine shells. The legs of these images were encased in gaiters of tiger skins, and on their feet were black sandals. A shield hung from the left arm, and in the right hand was a scepter ornamented with precious stones, an emblem which terminated in a crook like a bishop's crosier. Quetzalcoatl is credited with the invention of the pictorial or hieroglyphic method of writing, and especially in his name associated with the Tanalamath or Book of Fate. This was more than a civil calendar and was reserved for the calculations of human destiny and prophecies concerning the future of the state. It was used by master magicians, the chief of whom was an astrological adept credited with extraordinary occult powers. While it is likely that Quetzalcoatl brought the Tanalamatl back to Mexico after his journey among the Mayans, a people already advanced in such matters, the Aztecian legend has been summarized by Mendieta. The gods had created a man, Oxymoco, and a woman, Chipactonal, as the progenitors of the human race. They, according to the legend, dwelt in a cave at Cuernavaca, and in order to regulate their lives, these two resolved to devise a calendar. Zipacatl felt that her descendant Quetzalcoatl should be invited to participate in the project, because she was the mother of all the living and a great prophetess. Zipacatl was privileged to select and write the first sign or day symbol of the calendar. The others followed until the 13 signs were completed.